Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 27 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. It is Wednesday, July 24th, 2013. I tell you the date, just so you know that you're listening to a live show, if that's the same date it is in your world. If not, then you're listening to a rebroadcast. Right now, John Fuller is in the studio, and if you have a question for John or you'd like to comment on whatever course that the conversation takes in the next 28 minutes, then you are welcome to call. In fact, invited to call. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-WOCA. John Fuller is an attorney with the law firm of Fuller & Fuller here in Ocala. The show is called Legally Yours. And let me turn around and say good morning. John, how you doing?
Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Pretty good.
And I hope everybody that's listening to us is doing well.
Yeah.
Hopefully staying dry with all the rain we've had.
Is the headset working?
Yeah, No,
it's not working.
Yeah, okay. Now, close enough.
Oh, it is working a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
I know sometimes the phone calls.
Yeah, if I need you to translate, I'll trust you to restate it for me, because I really don't have very much volume, but that's okay.
I have a question about out-of-the-country law, I think.
Wow. Do you know any out-of-country lawyers?
No. But there was a story about this woman who was raped, and then she was in the Arab Emirate Republic or whatever.
I saw that in Dubai.
And they held her.
And she was pardoned. Yeah, Arabic law is
crazy.
Extremely. To us, it is very bizarre. Women have no rights whatsoever, and a woman who is raped is charged with being an unchaste female, and that's a crime under Arabic religious law. I don't even profess to know anything about it. I read it in the paper. They stone women to death.
That's crazy.
Some things that to us, it's an absolute abomination, and I don't mean that critically of anybody's religious beliefs. Certainly the beauty and joy of living in this country is that everybody's free to believe the way they want to, as long as they don't infringe on other people's freedom of choice and freedom of belief. What I do think that something like that reemphasizes, and I think it is a marvelous reminder whenever we might be compelled to want to be critical of our judicial system or our justice system in this country, to look at some of the other countries in the world and see how their citizens are treated, or anybody, whether you're a citizen or not, if you just happen to be in that country. The things that we take for granted: due process of law, presumption of innocence, right to effective assistance of counsel, right to a trial by jury, right to confront your accuser, right to subpoena witnesses, right to a speedy trial, all of those things that grew out of our Bill of Rights that was crafted by the Founding Fathers. They're all there for a reason, because the people that came to this country, and I've said this to juries many, many times in my career, and I believe it in my heart, they left the arid grounds of a hostile land where a person's liberty and life could be removed or taken from them at the whim of a dictator or a shah or a potentate or whatever name they wanted to give to some despot who had absolute power. And I think it was Franklin, I could be wrong, that said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Probably wasn't Franklin, but our country was founded upon protections and of the individual liberties of the individual. And certainly it's not perfect, and certainly there's criticisms to be made and that sort of thing, but my goodness, when you compare it with what other people are confronted with in other parts of the world, I think it ought to make every American citizen proud and grateful to live in this country.
Yeah, I wonder if the outcry from Americans is what allowed them to make the decision to let her come home. I'm guessing women...
Well, I think according to the article in the paper, Dubai is in the midst of a personality crisis. They love the capitalistic dollar. One of the biggest thoroughbred races in the world is held in Dubai. The oil sheikhs of Dubai have invested billions of dollars in American thoroughbred racing stock. Go to Keeneland sale, go to the Saratoga sale, go to OBS sale, and you will see them flying in their own private, not just private jets like we think of, like maybe a Learjet or something, but their own private 747 or some massive commercial airliner. Their wealth is unlimited, and they have developed a very modernistic side of their society. They have high-rise nightclubs and stuff, although alcohol consumption is also considered a very critical crime over there. But they want the international dollar. They want to be a mecca for the international jet set to come spend money. And so to have this scenario play out, they had to do in my view, reading from the paper, they had to do a really fast soft shuffle, and so they pardoned the woman and let her leave the country because they perceived that it probably wouldn't be good for tourism, that any tourist who went there to spend money and ended up being the victim of the crime of rape then ends up being charged, prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced to jail for being a victim, probably wasn't good for business. And when it all came down to it...
Thank God for business.
Yeah, when it all came down to it, and excesses in the name of religion and fervor in the name of religion collided with the capitalistic goal of making a dollar, the dollar, money won out, which in this case probably was a good thing.
And unfortunately, the women in her same position who happen to have been born and raised there,
absolutely,
they're stuck.
Right, because this created an international furor, and they were getting horrible press in the whole world. I mean, except maybe the other Arab, nations who have similar laws. And I'm no expert on Middle Eastern law, and I again want to make it very clear, I'm not criticizing anybody's religion. I wish I knew more about it. I intend to learn more about it. There's just some absolutely wonderful folks that I know who are friends of mine that live here, who are very devout Muslims. That has no carryover into what I think happened over there. But I want to make it very clear, that's not a criticism of anybody's personal religious beliefs.
Do just to kind of parlay that into what you do on a regular basis. And please, if you have a question for John, don't worry about interrupting us. We want you to
please call. If you have a legal question involving a legal issue that's affecting you or your family, and we can answer it generally or talk about the system, we'll be happy to do so. But these things are in the news, and they all have a tangential relationship to our own system.
In your years of representing clients, has their religion ever been necessary in the defense of that person?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. And I'm not sure that it would be a valid or viable defense.
Like if they were slaughtering goats or something?
I don't think that. In fact, I can tell you, we live in this country. Whether we're citizens or non-citizens, are subject to the laws of this country.
That's right.
And we are required to comply with the laws of this country. And if anybody violates it, and the government can prove it beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, the punishment should be administered equally to the people in this country. If you don't like our laws, go back where you came from.
There you go. When it's something as simple as a speeding violation, is it worth the time and the money to fight it?
Well, I guess that depends on how you define worth and how you define money. If you're in a situation that you are going to lose your job if you take time off to go have your trial, if you don't have enough money to pay the electric bill and they're about to turn your electricity off, and you can manage to scrape up enough to pay a fine. There are many, many, many things that enter into people's judgment as to what's in their personal best interest. The system gives them a venue if they don't believe that they're guilty of whatever they're charged with, be it speeding. That's a civil traffic infraction.
Right.
It's not a crime. It's not a jury trial. You have a right to go before a judge, and you have a right to have your day in court. And if the court believes that you were guilty of speeding, you will be able to be fined up to a maximum of $500, which is the maximum amount for a civil traffic infraction.
Okay.
And you will have points assessed on your driver's license and so forth and so on. If you simply go to court and you don't contest the speeding ticket, and it depends on whether or not how many points you have on your license. If you have 12 points in 12 months and you get a speeding ticket, you're going to lose your license if you get convicted of
Forever?
another one. No, for a year.
A year.
I believe a year.
Uh-huh.
I don't get involved in defending speeding tickets because, like you say, it's not financially feasible. Although, when I was a very young lawyer, I tried a bunch of them because I wanted to get in the courtroom and get as much experience as I could any way I could.
Well, the reason I was asking is because I don't know if you've ever seen this new Seinfeld thing that he does. It's called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. So basically, he's got a car and another comedian, and they go for a drive and go get coffee. Well, one of the episodes, he's with Chris Rock, and they're in this really fast little sports car. And it looks like he's intentionally speeding, and he gets pulled over. So they made it for entertainment value, I guess, to watch the thing. But I was thinking, two guys like this, and of course Jerry was driving, so he's the one responsible for the bill. He can afford $500. It's no big deal. But the guy who's speeding, who only makes minimum wage, has it's a bigger burden to have to pay that $500 bill. A rich guy can speed and just not worry about it.
Well, I don't know whether he worries about it or doesn't worry about it. The judge will ultimately decide, just like he would for a rich man, a man who's not rich, a man who's poor. He would decide it. Now, there is no question that having financial resources to develop your defenses gives you an advantage in our system. And if you are fortunate enough to have those resources, you're going to be able to mount defenses that other people may not have or care to spend those resources. I will share one example with you. Probably about 15 or 18 years ago, a very prominent gentleman who was well-known statewide, just a very, very respected person who was probably in his early 70s, had excellent vision, excellent hearing, excellent coordination, had never had a speeding ticket in his life, was driving from Tallahassee to Miami and was stopped in Marion County on I-75 by a law enforcement officer with a radar gun. He came to me and said, "I want to fight it." He said, "I wasn't speeding. There must be something wrong." And I said, "Well, we can challenge it, but we're going to have to spend some resources to do that." He said, "What do we need?" And I told him, and we challenged it, and we won. We ended up recreating the cone of the radar gun from where the officer was shooting. We recreated the traffic pattern that showed how he was surrounded by semi-tractor trailer trucks. We had an expert to show how the radar gun painted the different targets and what it would focus on, and that the larger image that was printed would take precedence over the radar gun at that time. It was 20 years ago.
Okay.
So even though the trooper thought and said he was pointing it at the defendant's vehicle, what he was really getting was the result of the tractor-trailer truck inside. We went out with a photographer and shot photographs off an overpass of I-75, and at different distances, tractor-trailer trucks can be a quarter of a mile further away than the vehicle, but they print at the same size as a small passenger vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Furthermore, radar guns have to be calibrated. The people who calibrate them have to use instruments that have been calibrated. They have to be done at certain intervals, and if they're not done, then the results is not admissible into evidence. And if the judge suppresses the results of the radar gun, there is no evidence of speeding and would acquit the defendant. Now,
Wow.
when we got all through with that, did he spend more money than he could have by going down and paying a $200 ticket?
Sounds like it.
Because it was his first ticket. And ever. And he said, I'm 70-something years old. I don't want this on my record. I'm afraid because of my age, I'll get problems with my insurance.
Right.
My rates will go up. And furthermore, I know in my heart I wasn't speeding. If I was speeding, I'd pay the ticket. So we had a PhD physicist from the University of Florida. We had a reconstruction expert in engineering from the University of Florida. We had a professional photographer and it was a aerial photographs. We had everything. That's what he wanted, and that's what he could afford to pay.
Wow.
And
It was principle for him.
And well, it was principle, but it was also concern. I think as we get older, we become more fearful that we will be looked at in a different light than maybe if we were 25 or 30. And I think the fact that he was 70-something, getting a speeding ticket, he felt like might negatively affect his insurance, might negatively affect his ability to renew his driver's license, etc.
Interesting. And again, once again, you've illustrated for us why we go to you when we need help in the courtroom. And we do have a phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very good. It's always great speaking to you, and I just love your program.
Well, thank you. And I want to say to you, sir, I always appreciate your calls. You have always great questions and comments. You're always on the cutting edge of what's going on in our community.
Oh, thank you.
And people like you who listen to this program, take the time to call in, I believe makes this program what it is. And I hope it's a good program, but it certainly wouldn't be if it wasn't for folks like you. So thank you.
I know when I need a lawyer someday, I know where I'm going.
Well, I appreciate that, and I would always try to help you, but I certainly hope you don't have the need for one.
Yeah, I hope not either. I have just a little question. I hope it isn't too foolish or anything, but going through the bonding process, is it advisable, or do you have to go through a lawyer or with a lawyer to that process?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. When you say bonding,
well,
are you
to
talking?
get out of jail, you have to, you get
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe bonding means are you bonding with your sibling? Are you are you getting a bond for working in a bank? Or are you bonding out? No, you don't need a lawyer. And in fact, most people, the first person they want to talk to when they're in jail is a bail bondsman because they want to get out of jail as quickly as they can, because jail is a very unpleasant and distressing place. And for the average citizen who has never ever been there, it's it's a devastating experience.
Yes.
No, you can call a bail bondsman.
Yeah.
In fact, at the jail, I haven't been down there in a number of years because I haven't done criminal defense work in several years. But if you do find yourself arrested, they have the phone numbers of the number of different bonding companies.
Right.
And you're allowed to make a phone call. Certainly, you want to get out of jail. It's much better to talk to your lawyer in your lawyer's office rather than having your lawyer come to talk to you at jail. So if bond is set and it's a reasonable amount, the way a bail bondsman works is he's like an insurance policy. He is bonded with the court, and your bail is set. They have a bail schedule for each offense, and the automatic bond is set based upon what the bond schedule says.
Yeah.
If you want to try to get that reduced, you have to go before the committing magistrate and argue for a reduction in that bond. But if you want to get out of jail before you go before the committing magistrate, and the law says they have to take you before a committing magistrate within 24 hours of being arrested, but if you don't want to sit in jail for 24 hours, you call a bail bondsman.
Right.
If your bail bond if your bail is set at $5,000,
right,
the bail bondsman will write a bond. You pay him $500. His fee is 10% of the amount of the bond. You don't ever get that back. That's like your premium on your insurance policy. You write the bond, you pay the bail bondsman, he writes the bond, he gives it to the jail and the court, and they release you immediately.
Okay.
Okay? The condition of your bail bond is that you show up at court when you're supposed to, and that
Right.
means all the pretrial conferences that the judge may set, a status conference, a pretrial conference, a change of plea conference, all of those things that the judge tells you have to be there, you better be there. That's a condition of your bail.
Okay.
Then once you show up for trial, you fulfill the conditions of your bail, and your bail bondsman is then off the responsibility for you. If an individual bails out by paying a bail bondsman
Uh-huh.
and then becomes a fugitive, flees the jurisdiction, doesn't show up for trial,
Okay.
then the state of Florida calls up the bail bondsman and says, you need to bring us a check for $5,000 because John Doe, who is one of your bailees, didn't show up for his criminal trial this morning. We have issued a capias, which is a bench warrant for his arrest, and we have a warrant out for his arrest. If you know where he is and you can produce him by going and physically getting him and bringing him to the court, bringing him to the jail in response to the capias, we'll give you a brief time to do that in some cases.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they pay the full amount of the defendant's bond and bail, and then they have to pursue their remedies against the person who fails to appear.
Yeah.
It's very rare for a person not to appear
Yeah.
because that leads to a whole bevy of additional charges, and once they find you, which they inevitably do
Yeah.
in this day and age, it's with computers and cell phones and credit cards, and it's very, very hard to, quote, disappear.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
they find you, I feel pretty confident in telling you they're not going to allow you to be released again on bail.
Yeah. Is this where bounty hunters come in play?
I guess so. I'm not real sure how
Yeah.
the bounty hunter, I know I've seen that TV show advertised. I really haven't seen it, but I've seen it advertised. But I don't know what Florida law says about, quote, bounty hunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, theoretically, if someone is missing, they can go bring them in and collect some reward for it or
Yeah.
something. I really don't know how that works.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of places where you can get bounted in this, you drive by all these different places saying, they have that available. It must be kind of a lucrative business.
I don't know. I know there's numbers that you can call that there's certain funds available that if
Yeah.
you can provide, if law enforcement is looking for someone who is a suspect of a crime or
Yeah.
someone who's been charged with a crime but not yet apprehended, and someone has knowledge of it, there's some crime tip hotline. I don't know the details of that,
Yeah.
but there are some funds that if the information that you give leads to the arrest and conviction, sometimes private citizens will offer rewards. If a child is missing or kidnapped or something like that,
Yeah.
you will see people offer rewards as a private incentive to the populace at large to be vigilant and try to help solve the crime and hopefully return the victim safe.
Yeah. Okay, well, very interesting, and thank you for that was a great answer.
Thank you. I appreciate you calling.
You bet. Bye now.
Have a good day.
Yeah, real quick question about the behavior in a courtroom. Or does the judge always set what you're allowed to do? Like cell phones have to be turned off, and that kind of thing.
Yes, cell phones. Judges have rules of decorum in court. Lawyers are subject to rules of decorum in court. They must treat the tribunal with respect. They must treat other lawyers with respect. And those are all part of the rules regulating members of the Florida Bar. But judges have their own rules for their courtrooms. Obviously, they don't allow cell phones. You have to, all the judges that I've seen require the basics that, usually it's really just common sense, Larry, that you're going into court where important business is being transacted, and they expect your decorum to reflect the respect of the process of what's going on. So they require you, if you're a man, take your hat off when you enter the courtroom. tuck your shirt tail in. Don't come in with your pants hanging halfway down your bottom side.
Can you literally get
You can get held in contempt of court.
So you go to
If the
jail?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If the judge tells you,
even if you're like in the audience?
if you're in the audience,
Really?
and the judge says, "Sir, you need to pull your pants up above to your waist," or "Sir, you need to take your hat off,"
Yeah.
or "Sir, you can't come in here without a shirt on," and you either go leave the courtroom and get your dress and come in with appropriate decorum and respect for the process. It's not, the judge isn't doing it because he wants to be treated like some kind of a deity or something. It's the system that we respect. It's the process that we
Right.
respect. The only thing our system really has going for it is a willingness of the populace to give the court system a power of law-abidingness, that if the judge or the jury says that the opinion is X, we may not like it. We may not agree with it. But we've had our day in court,
Yeah.
and we need to respect that. That's the rule of law that we have adopted in this country, that we are a country of laws and not men. We respect the rule of law, and if we lose that respect, then our whole system and the fabric of our society disintegrates.
So just one word out of line, or let's see, what was the example? I think it was a person taking a picture with their cell phone, and the judge held them in contempt. It was a
Yes.
story in the news.
Yes, well, they make it very clear to you. Most of the courtroom doors in the courthouse, I'm not saying all of them, but I think most all, if not all of them, have signs up that says, gentlemen, remove your hats, tuck your shirt tail in, all cell phones must be turned off, no chewing gum, just what, like I said, most of this is just general common sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
When you go someplace where something important is taking place, you usually are held to a standard of decorum, and that's what we are. And it's not burdensome or onerous. I mean, they don't make you go put on a coat and tie or wear dress clothes or do something like that. They just require that you dress respectfully.
I remember when, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but years ago I worked for the Juvenile Detention Center.
That's a rough job.
And one of the guys who worked there brought some kids into the courtroom, and he was wearing a T-shirt, the worker was, because basically his job was working with the kids out in the basketball court and whatever, and he was chastised, not held in contempt, but warned that the next time he would be.
Right, and judges are usually, if there's an explanation for it, if it's one of the circumstances that you just didn't know and you didn't have time to put on a shirt and or something like that, most judges will give you an opportunity to resolve the situation. But I've seen people be very disrespectful to judges about their dress. When a judge said, "Sir," and get up and show disrespect to the court. And disrespect to the court is contempt of court if it's done in the direct presence of the judge. You shouldn't use profanity. You shouldn't use. You should dress appropriately. You should treat people respectfully. You should treat the court respectfully. You don't answer a judge, yeah, you either say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, or yes, your honor, that sort of thing.
Yeah. You illustrated once again in today's show why we go to you for help if we need legal assistance. John, how do we get a hold of you? What's your number?
Yes, we have offices in Ocala and the Villages. Our Ocala number is 352-547-4292. Our toll-free number is 855-534-2565. We're at the law firm of Fuller & Fuller, and we'd be happy to talk with you if you have a legal question that we can help you with.
Very good. And be sure you can check online and go to Facebook. You'll be able to see this broadcast again. We've got all of John's broadcasts. I don't know if you even knew that.
I did not. No, that's quite impressive.
They're all on the YouTube page.
Okay.
Most of them. Some of them had a mix-up technology-wise, whatever. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Larry. Always a pleasure.
Be careful. It looks like it was pouring a little while ago out there.
Oh, man.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. A lawyer for government secret leaker Edward Snowden says he's not leaving the transit section of the Moscow